If you're a woman who's achieved much but knows that there's more to life than titles, or maybe you're an executive leader that's thinking about legacy, succession, and shaping systems that pass the baton well, this episode will inspire you to consider redefining success through the lens of faith and joy.
He sends me the job description. It doesn't have the name of the company at top. I'm reading through the job description. I'm like, yeah. And then I get down to worldwide leader in sports. And I'm like, wow, this is ESPN. This is ESPN. Every objection that I brought up, there was an answer to it. And that's when I said, okay, this is bigger than me. I felt God was saying, it's time. It's time for you to move. It's time for you to spread your wings a little bit more. And it's time for you to trust me and to move out of your comfort zone and trust that I have something bigger and better for you. And so I said yes. I also don't want anyone listening is to feel that I had this journey that was flawless.
Yes.
It wasn't hurt or pain or disappointment or things that God said no to along the way.
Please tell me about them, Dr. Tonya. That's what we're here for.
There were these pivotal aha moments that really helped direct me toward the person that I have become and am becoming. My husband was a military officer for a number of years, so my career trailed his. And I said, this is my chance. Now I get to have the career that I wanted to have. I was teaching full-time during the day, and I applied to law school, got accepted.
Oh, wow.
I was raising two small children. My daughter was in first or second grade. My son was in preschool. I was a wife. So wife, mother, full-time teacher, part-time law student.
Oh, my gosh.
A year or so into it, a year and a half into it, it all came crumbling down.
Hey, guys. You're listening to the JOYrney To Purpose Podcast with Erica Lasan. The road to joy and purpose can feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and sometimes, because others don't always understand it, it can be isolating and lonely. For almost 30 years of my life, I identified myself through roles and titles that put pressure on me to perform, but often left me feeling empty and void of purpose. But things got real when I discovered I'd be gaining yet another new title, that of mommy. It was at that point of surrender that I chose joy. Now, as a corporate joy strategist, speaker, and executive coach, I help working women, mothers, and caregivers in transitional phases of life find joy, purpose, and healing in what's next. In this podcast, we dive deep into stories, lessons, and transparent conversations to uncover vision manifesting joy gems that are sure to help you rediscover, reconnect, and recommit to your purpose and identity in joy. One feel-good thing at a time. Hey, thanks for tuning into another episode of the JOYrney To Purpose Podcast with me, Erica Lasan. Today's episode is a powerful one for women navigating the next chapter in their lives and careers. I'm joined by Dr. Tonya Harris Cornileus, the former Senior Vice President of Talent and Learning Solutions for the Walt Disney Company. Dr. Tonya's career spans nearly 3 decades of leadership at a number of companies and organizations, some of which you may recognize, like ESPN and Turner Broadcasting. Dr. Tonya very recently retired from Disney, where she helped shape talent, culture, and leadership development at a global scale. But beyond titles and tenure, Dr. Tonya's journey is really one of faith, truth, and becoming. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to age gracefully and boldly, to honor wisdom as a crown, and to reclaim joy beyond productivity, performance, and professional identity. Let's dive in. I am so excited for today's conversation because, guys, we have a guest, the beautiful, the illuminating, the just wonderful Dr. Tonya Harris Cornelius. And I'm really excited to get into this conversation for many reasons. But you know what? I'm not even going to tell you all the things because you need to stick around and listen. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Tonya Harris Cornelius. Welcome.
Hi. Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am so happy to have you here. Your hair looks fabulous, by the way. Happy birthday. As of
Thank
the time
you.
we are recording this, your birthday was a couple of days ago. And I think that this translates so nicely to the conversation that we're going to be having today because we're going to be talking about aging with grace and
Yes.
enjoying the process and appreciating the wisdom that you gain over the years as you consider what's next. So I'm really excited that the timing also worked out this
Yeah,
way.
serendipitous. Like you said, it's timing is everything. So yeah, it's serendipitous. I just had a birthday on Monday. Yeah.
Yay! How did you spend it?
Whoa.
I know, big
So
question.
it started with the weekend, right? So I've moved to my new home here in South Carolina. And so I don't
Congratulations.
have family or really close friends in the area. And my daughter's not coming up until this coming weekend. So I knew that I would be spending the birthday pretty much solo. I saw it as a great opportunity to do exactly the things that bring me joy. And so what I did is on Saturday, I got up, I did a 90-minute massage at this place that I had not been to before. I left there and I went to this really tucked away restaurant that a friend had told me about in Charleston. So I'm in the Charleston area. And I had a beautiful lunch outside of that. And then I spent the rest of the afternoon at the Gibbs Museum in Charleston, just walking the galleries and just, really reflecting on the artist that such beautiful things. So that's how I spent my Saturday. Got up Sunday and I went to church and it was
Yes.
wonderful. The message was so great and all of that. And then I left there and took myself to brunch. And then after brunch, I went to this place that I've been wanting to go to that's not far from my home called the Boone Hall Plantation. It
Mm.
still has, the dwellings where slaves actually, where their houses were, where they were housed on this plantation, and just learning the history and really grounding myself in the history and the experiences of that time just really it was good because I'm a reflective person, and so it just really was a capstone to a great, Saturday and Sunday weekend, and then Monday, my actual birthday, I had some wonderful ladies who I have met in my community who took me out to lunch, um,
Mm.
together, and it was so wonderful. So I had an absolutely fabulous birthday. My son sent me flowers, my daughter sent me a gift card, and I got so many good wishes from my family, my friends on social media and so forth. So I felt
Yes.
really loved and really thought of and cared for on my birthday, but honestly, I was just grateful.
Yes.
I sat alongside my bed, Erica, and I was just thanking the creator for another day, another year, and all of the blessings in my life, all of the great things in my life, but also the wonderful things that may lie ahead for me. So I'm
Yes.
just in this spirit of gratitude right now and joy. And so you caught me at a really good time.
Oh, praise God. Oh my gosh. And your birthday sounds wonderful. Oh my goodness. I love that you celebrated more than one day.
Oh, yeah.
And that you really did do the things that brought you joy. And I especially love hearing this because my birthday's in July. And this year I opted to take a different approach. I feel like over the years, and I don't know if this is just something that comes with getting wiser in years. I'm not sure. You can let me know. But I just feel like over the years, as you get to know yourself better, you just realize, all the stuff I used to do, like, was that really what I wanted to do for my birthday? Or was that just what I felt I was supposed to do in celebration? Thinking about I don't know, throwing parties and doing this and doing that, which not knocking it. But this year, I kind of took the same approach that you did, and just like, really intentionally wanting to spend time doing the simple things that bring me joy.
Oh,
And I broke it down into like three different parts where it's like family, fun, and like solo. And I did one thing for each of those areas of my life. Starting from 5:30 in the morning, I was like, I want to watch the sunrise. It's on my vision bingo board, and I want to do a beautiful journal entry about it. And I did a podcast episode watching the sunrise in this beautiful spot in New Jersey. And then came back and did a really fun activity with my kids. And then after that, had a solo hang with my husband. It was the most wonderful, simple, intentional day. So I really love hearing
I
that
think
your
that's
approach.
what it is, the intentionality and just the presence, being,
Yes,
having presence. And I think however you spent your birthday in your younger years, or even if you decide to do something different next year, is your day. You can do what
that's
it is you want to do and whatever feels right and good,
that
joyful for you at that time. Look, I had a mother who died at the age of 43.
wow.
And so I feel that every year
Yes,
and every day, honestly, but certainly every year, I am remembering that. And I am
yes,
remembering that to not take any of this for granted and to live to the fullest
yes,
that we possibly can, because every day, every year is precious. And
yes.
it is a time to celebrate and to be grateful and joyful.
Yes. Oh man. Okay. If that is any indication of where this conversation is going, I'm really excited because everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. um, oh man, but we've definitely hit the ground running, and I want to give the Journey listeners a bit of background around who you are and a little context as to the alignment that I feel is definitely going to be throughout this. But would you mind sharing a little bit about your journey story with the listeners? Who is Dr. Tonya Harris Cornelius, and how did we arrive here talking about joy and purpose in the way that you lead your what's next?
Yeah, well, I'd say a learner and teacher at heart. And I I've spent my career really from the time that I started my first job. I'll speak on that in a minute, but the time I started my first job to now, really having a north star of
Yes.
wanting to help people believe in themselves and awaken the greatness that is already in each of us,
Yes.
and ignite the transformation, the personal transformation into helping people become who they are meant to become and live the lives that they really dream of living and living to the fullest. So that has been with me for a while, and it started in my first job out of college, believe it or not. I had gotten my undergrad in broadcast media, but my first job out of college was as a school teacher. And
What?
yeah, down in Miami and in the inner city of Miami, actually. And I had gone down because I thought it was almost like my gap year. Like, okay, take this year to figure out what it is you really want to do. In the meantime, there was a shortage of teachers. And so Miami-Dade County was hiring college grads to pursue the teaching profession and going through an alternative route to certification. And so my girlfriend said, "Hey, why don't you come down and do that for a year until you figure it out?" And so that's what I did. And I tell you, like you said, there are no coincidences. It was serendipitous for me because it was in that classroom teaching 11 and 12-year-olds and inner city, very poor neighborhood. Most of my students were children of immigrants or Black Americans, and it was in that classroom when I asked them one day, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I know now that's not the best question to ask. This is what people do. They tie
Yeah.
who they are to what they do, but I asked that question, and certainly they had all the things that 11 and 12-year-olds want to do. But I got to this last student who was sitting right in front of my desk. And I asked her, Anaris, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she was this very smart, beautiful, kind of shy, reserved girl, reminded me of myself probably when I was 11 years old or so. and being shy and a little quiet, that is. And she kind of almost whispered to me, I want to be a doctor. And a wave of compassion, Erica, came over me because I saw in her eyes and in her voice. And then I looked around that classroom of students who are coming from these families that of little means in neighborhoods that are under resourced, but they had big dreams.
Mm.
Harris had this dream of being a doctor that must have felt too big for her. Like, how
Yes.
dare she dream that big? And
Mhm.
it was there when I had my aha moment that I was
Mm.
not there by chance. I was there because I was meant to be in that classroom with those students that day. And there's this saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right?
Mhm.
But in that case, I was the student.
Mm.
My students taught me. And I knew from that day, I didn't know what I would end up doing with my career, but I knew that whatever I did with my career, that I wanted it to be about helping people believe in themselves,
Yes.
believe in their dreams, and to pursue their goals and dreams and live their life to the fullest. And
Mm.
that has been the North Star that has carried me through my career as a school teacher, transitioning into my corporate experience, first as a training manager, moving through my career as a learning and development executive, and then talent management and so forth, working for big names like Turner Broadcasting. I'd say Aegis Communications was before Turner, where I got a lot of great mentorship and experience. And then Turner, really moving into my learning and organizational development, went back to school, got my master's and ultimately my PhD in
Yes.
resource development and organizational development, and then got a call from ESPN and ended up going there reluctantly, believe it or not.
What?
Reluctantly, even though I loved ESPN. But what I found was really circuitous, was really very interesting to me, was that here I got my undergraduate in broadcast media, and I found myself working for media companies like Turner
Mhm.
and ESPN, and now the Walt Disney Company, which is ESPN is a part of the Walt Disney Company, but got all of that. So working in these media and entertainment companies, but doing the work that I absolutely love in leading learning and development, leadership development, talent management, and career development now at the Walt Disney Company for over 220,000 employees. Although I have shifted and transitioned that because I am on the cusp, if you will, of retirement. So much to say, but I've had really a fulfilling career, saying yes to the things that matter to me and saying no to the things that I thought were not aligned with the North Star. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. There's so many things that I want to sink my teeth into. Part of the conversation reflects part of what even inspired a bit of my journey to purpose. And just recognizing how we as adults get to learn from children. Children are really a reflection of who we get to become, but also who we've always been called to be to some degree. I don't necessarily know exactly what faith you subscribe to, but I am a believer. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. But one of the things that the scriptures talk about a lot is having childlike faith, and that we are meant to be like children. And when we are like children, it allows us to have the childlike faith and recognizing that there is a provider, there is a protector, there is a creator, there is someone who's looking out for you. And really, if you're allowing, will guide you, hold your hand in this process of becoming who you were purposed to be all along. And
Love that.
yeah, and hearing you share that story of how you met your student and how she prompted you to recognize, like, I'm not just here for the sake of being here. I'm here for a reason. That you creating space for her to share who she wanted to be and who she saw herself as actually unlocked something in you that allowed you to recognize this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I love that you even mentioned the fact that because you've been clear about what your North Star is, you have been able to say no to the things that don't align and yes to the things that do. My audience is primarily working moms, stay at home moms, mothers. I think it can be very easy to get caught up in the I have tos versus the I get tos. I get to curate a life that I love, and I don't just have to necessarily succumb to what life throws at me. But when you are clear on the North Star, the vision, if you will, then it makes it a lot easier to align yourself with the things that you're actually called to do and purposed to do.
Agree 1,000%. I think it just brings a level of clarity.
Yes.
Um, and when we are clear, we can move more confidently toward our purpose. And I think the other thing that children teach us is that they are open and they
Mhm.
know how to let stuff go when it's time to let go. They don't hold on to anything too long. I think
Mm.
as adults sometimes we hold on to things too long, whether they're grudges, whether they're limiting beliefs, whether they are, expectations that others have placed on us and we've accepted into our lives. I think we have to let some of those things go so that the true authentic self can emerge. And
Yes.
I think that's why children, they go through these physically, emotionally, spiritually, and so many other ways. They go through these growth spurts. And I think we can continue growing and becoming the person we've always meant to be. As you said, when we stay open and we flow with life, we flow with the current of life instead of trying to resist things, even times when we go through difficulties, right?
Mhm.
What are those difficulties there to teach us? How can
Yes.
we reframe those difficulties and instead of them seeing them as setbacks, seeing them as stepping stones to an even greater place of being for
Yes.
ourselves. And so I do think having a positive mindset and having, kind of a attitude of joy and trust,
Yes.
self-trust, trust in your creator, your source, just helps move us along. But I think getting back to being really clear opens that doorway of which direction you want to go and who it is that you want to become and what matters most to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I could not agree more. I started off my journey, if you will, as an on air host, and it happened after a hard season of graduating from college and not being able to find employment. And I was like, I might as well try this thing. And after getting what I thought was going to be a really big break, I found out I was pregnant. And then I was like, my life is over. But truly, having our children has revealed so much to me about who I am, but also just I really believe how we're meant to engage with life. And part of that was just realizing the curiosity that we get to have in the process and recognizing that when we anchor ourselves with joy, it almost becomes like a flashlight in the world of darkness, but it also guides the path that we are meant to take. And I think it also does help with the things that you mentioned in terms of just letting things go. They don't hold on to things because they have nothing else to worry about. The
That's true.
problem in the moment, and then they're on to the next thing because everything for them is an adventure. And when we begin to embrace life like that, then um, it makes the process of becoming a lot lighter, but it makes the process more enjoyable because everything is exciting, everything is new. There's possibility and opportunity everywhere. And hearing you share those things that you did mention around your roles, most people will probably wonder, well, how did you end up at Disney? And you mentioned the call from ESPN, but what was your thought when you entered this role? And how do you establish your identity outside of what it is that you do?
So let me start with the last question. How do I detach in some ways my identity from the work that I do. I think that I bring myself to the role. The role doesn't make me who I am. And
Ooh,
that's
that's good.
so I bring my whole self. I bring my knowledge, my education, my training, my skills, my passions, my interests, my curiosities, my life experiences. I bring those things to the role. The role doesn't define those things. Um, and so I give of myself in every role that I take on instead of thinking that that role is who I am. So
Mm,
there's just that little bit of separation, if you will. And so I love my work and I immerse myself in my work and I always want to do such a really great job. But I know that as now I'm preparing to retire, I have no hesitation with that. I have no thought about, well, who am I going to be after that role, after I leave, after I'm no longer senior vice president, yeah, whatever. I have no hesitation with that because that didn't define me from the very beginning. Maybe, letting your listeners kind of reflect on that for themselves, that they are so much bigger than the role that they get to occupy, if you will. And then when they leave, they will still be their most magnificent selves, even having learned in the role that they did. Now, your other question was really about how I got to the role, got to Disney, got to ESPN.
yes.
Okay. So I was at Turner and just- I was doing really well at Turner and loved my job there. And I kept getting this call from a recruiter. Well, I kept getting the call and I wouldn't take the call for quite a while. I wouldn't take the call. And so I pick up one day and he says, "Can I just send you the job description?" And you know how they do, the recruiters do. They say, if you're not interested, just if you can share someone in your network who might be. And I said, sure, I'll do that. So he sends me the job description. It doesn't have the name of the company at top. I'm reading through the job description. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I get down to worldwide leader in sports. And I'm like, wow, this is ESPN. This is ESPN. And certainly it had piqued my interest then because leaving a brand like Turner with all of the iconic IP that organization, that company has, it was going to take a lot for me to even consider leaving. And plus, I loved Atlanta. I was in Atlanta. So it was going to take a lot. But ESPN was a brand worth considering. And so I took the call and I talked to some of my mentors, even at the company at Turner, and said, look, I have this opportunity to interview. They encouraged me to have the conversation. And
Mm.
so I went for the interview. And before I got home from the airport, I went to the interview. It went well. I'm driving home from the airport and they called me again and asked me would I come back for a second interview. I hadn't even gotten home from the first.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, long story short, it took a lot still because this is how our comfort zones are. I was
Yes.
comfortable at Turner. I was
Mm,
comfortable in Atlanta. I had just gone through a divorce and I just felt like, this was my time. I had a great career. I was in a city that I loved, but I talked to one of my mentors and he said, I have a feeling that if you stay at Turner, you're going to continue to grow. You're highly thought of, but the growth might be incremental. And if
mm,
incremental growth and so forth, then go. But he says, I just have this feeling that if you take the role at ESPN, you're going to grow exponentially, not just
mm,
company, but with yourself and even outside the company. And it was enough to unearth me out of my comfort zone to say everything that I was saying no to. Because remember, I said I kind of have a clear sense of what I want to say yes to, what I want to say no to. But everything that I wanted to say no to, I was finishing up my doctoral studies. This is not the right time. My son was in his senior year, about to go to college at University of Miami. I wanted to see him off, get all my manager, my gaining manager who hired me at ESPN says, "Look, we'll work all around that. We'll work around
Wow.
you'll be able to travel back, to meet with your professors, to do whatever it is that you need to do." Everything, every objection that I brought up, there was an answer to it. And that's when I said, "Okay, this is bigger than me."
Yes.
Is where I felt God was saying, "It's time. It's time for you to move.
Yes.
It's time for you to spread your wings a little bit more. And it's time for you to trust me and to move out of your comfort zone and trust that I have something bigger and better for you." And so I said, yes. I said,
Mhm.
and I have not regretted it a single day. I grew so well at ESPN and made such great friends and colleagues and had such great sponsorship from the president, the chairman, all the way through the organization for the work that I was doing. And then a little over 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I, applied for the enterprise wide role at the Walt Disney Company and got that. And in that role for over 3 years, I led all of the company's learning and development, leadership development, talent management, which was talent and succession planning, performance management, and career development for over 200,000 employees and approximately 40,000 leaders. A big role, but I knew it was my capstone role. I knew that that was my final corporate role, and I knew that at the end of that I would want to transition out of my corporate role, and move into what I am looking forward to in the new year to do, and that is being the founder and CEO of the AHA Principle, which many know as by the brand name of Your AHA Life. But yeah, so that's how I got to ESPN, to Disney. Love it, love the people, love the brands, and it was an incredible experience, a great way to top off, a very fulfilling career, and
Mm.
now I'm ready for what's next.
Oh my gosh. Titania, you you articulated and shared all of that so beautifully and in a way where does it really does highlight the journey of not only who you are, but who you've always been. And it really sounds like you were born for this. You were born to do these things. But I want to touch on a couple of different things because I know I asked you two questions at once, and honestly, maybe I should have broken them up. But you mentioned the fact that you did not allow the role to define you as far as being an executive leader. And in taking that mindset coming in to each role, you really allow yourself to show up fully as yourself. And it's almost like the role wears you and you don't wear the role. How are you able to do that? Because in thinking about the women who may be listening to this, I think it can be so easy for people, it's not just women, but I do think that women wear it differently. Um, the idea of I am this role and this responsibility and almost thinking like, well, I'm a mom. So now that's who I am for this season. Or I'm a founder. I know that at one point that was a thing for me. Like that's who I am for this season. I have to go all in with this idea of being a founder. Or I'm a wife. Like that is who I am. And then the role almost becomes the cloak and the identity that then drives so many of the decisions when really it's like, no, you're a person. You're a child of God first. And when you're clear on who he is, who he's made you and what he's made you to do, irregardless of the moment or the time that you're in, it can help shape and influence how you then show up in that role and not the other way around. But I don't know, how do you think about it?
We have to be cognizant of that and understanding at any given time, any of those roles can change.
Okay.
What are we left with? We're left with
Mm,
self. And so being grounded in self and knowing who you are is super important because I was a wife. I'm not a wife today. And I'm not, I'm all for long marriages. I love love. My mother used to tell me that when I was growing up. Tanya, you just love love. Yes, I do. So I'm all for long marriages and all of that. But for me, it didn't my marriage, I got divorced, and so I was no longer a wife. I will always be a mother, but
mm,
there are some women who want to be mothers who are not mothers, you know? So I think we have to take every role as a gift and as something that is a part of our journey, but it is not the journey in and of itself.
that's good.
Our journey is about us getting to know ourselves, getting to know who we are in relationship with if you have a belief in a higher source, in God, who are we in relationship with God? Who are we? What are we here to ultimately do? And for some, their single purpose is to raise productive, healthy, children. And that is a purpose, but they still need to remember who they are and how do
Yes.
they remain healthy and whole themselves in order to carry out that purpose. I want to take you back though, Erica, because what I also don't want anyone listening is to feel that I had this journey that was flawless.
Yes.
There wasn't hurt or pain or disappointment or things that God said no to along the way.
Mm.
Yes, there
Please tell me about them, Dr. Tanya. That's what we're here for.
so I'll tell you a pivotal point. I have this aha life, right? So there
Yes.
there were these pivotal aha moments that really helped direct me toward the person that I have become and am becoming. But I remember when I had gotten married and, after, teaching that year in Miami, I got married the following year. My husband was a military officer for a number of years. So my career trailed his.
Mm.
I had to, take on teaching or other jobs because my career followed his, if you
Yes.
but then, he got out. I'd say we got out of the military, and we moved to Atlanta. And I said, "This is my chance. Now I get to have the career that I wanted to have." So, I was teaching full-time during the day, and I applied to law school because in undergrad, that was one of the things that I said I wanted to do. I think I wanna go to law school or graduate school, but I said law school. So this was my time and I was going to go to law school. So I applied to law school, got accepted to the evening program. So yeah, so 4 nights out of the week, I was in law school from like 4:30 in the afternoon to 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
I was raising 2 small children. My daughter was in 1st or 2nd grade. My son was in preschool. I was a wife. So wife, mother, full-time teacher, part-time law student. And
My gosh.
a year or so into it, a year and a half into it, it all came crumbling down and I flunked out of law school. I never flunked at anything academically. And I was always a pretty good solid student, and so that was devastating for me. One, because I felt like I had put my career on hold for many years, and secondly, because I had failed at something. And so I stayed home. I quit my teaching job even, and I stayed home for about 6 months, and I said, "Okay, I really need to get alone with myself and figure out
Mm.
what it is that I really want to do." And during that time and a lot of prayer, meditation, and reflection, it took me back to that classroom in Miami, Florida, when I had that aha moment and said,
Mm,
what was my North Star? So I realized, yeah, I want to teach. I want to be a part of helping people grow and develop and be their best selves and accomplish their goals and dreams. And this time I want to work with adults. And that's when I transitioned into my corporate role,
mm,
started my corporate career. So that was a pivotal moment. And I've come to look at that failure or that flunking out as you know, as divine, honestly,
yeah.
as a divine intervention to put me back on the path of what was really going to bring me a sense of joy and purpose and fulfillment. And I haven't looked back. Now, I used to look back on that and feel so sad. I look
Mm,
back on that and I am
yes.
rejoicing that I did I did fail at that and found my true calling many years later. Of course, I did end up when my kids were much older, went back and got my master's degree and my PhD. And look, though it's just been wonderful since then. So I have had those kinds of things like that. My mother died when I was a junior in college, as I mentioned earlier. That was also such a pivotal moment for me, really like
Mm,
a rug being ripped out from under my feet, getting my grounding from that, getting divorced after almost 22 years of marriage. So I have had life has been lifing,
okay.
had those experiences, but those experiences through them all, and if you I just speak to the listeners now, if you have experiences where you feel like you've gotten off track or you feel like you're facing difficulty or disappointments or circumstances that are not going your way, I'd ask you to just step back from it and see the divine in it and
Yeah.
say, what is this moment here to teach me? What can I learn from this? How can I grow through this experience and still become the person that I desire to be in this world? And I guarantee you, when we gather ourselves and let ourselves grieve, let ourselves mourn, let ourselves do whatever it is that we need to do, but then pick ourselves up and keep moving forward, then the doors will start to open, which they did for me. My career took off after that. Like I wasn't even trying hard. Like I said, the people at ESPN, they came looking for me. I didn't apply. They came looking for me. And I remember
Mm,
asking them, how did you find me? And they said, oh, we found you on LinkedIn. And I was like, whoa, that really works. And
mm,
so just tells you, like, let's just keep going. Let's keep going. Even like your setbacks can truly become your stepping stones.
yes.
Just trusting in yourself, trusting in your higher power, and having a good support network around you, and you will just keep moving ahead. I know that for sure.
Yes. I want to take a moment to pause here because if you're listening to Dr. Tanya and quietly thinking to yourself, this resonates, I know I need to start thinking about what's next, but I am so busy that I don't quite have the words for exactly how I'm feeling, and I'm not quite sure of how to start. If that's you, then I've got you. I created a free resource called the Work Life Joy Quiz, and the question that it answers is simple but powerful. What's holding you back and keeping you trapped in this season of your life and leadership? For some women, it's the identity of being wrapped up in their title. For others, it's burnout, people pleasing, guilt, or the pressure to continue performing at a level that no longer aligns with who they're becoming. This 3-minute quiz helps you name what's quietly been draining your joy, and the results give you a personalized starting point for reclaiming clarity, peace, and purpose without burning everything down. You can take it right now at ericalasan.com/joyquiz, which I'll also include in the show notes. But in the meantime, consider this an invitation to pause, reflect, and realign. All right, let's jump back into the conversation. Oh man, there are so many pieces about what you just said that I think are so necessary for people to hear, but like I almost want to repeat them. The fact that you felt for a really long time that you were following your husband's career. I think that that's something that some women do feel happens, and especially on the podcast recently, we've been talking a lot about submission and this idea of like you're meant to follow and or not follow, but like be led, and I think that there is a blessing in that. But if it's something where you are not fully grounded in understanding who you are, it makes it one a lot more difficult to receive that for the blessing that it is. But two, I almost feel like it becomes a bit of a setup where both parties can possibly end up thinking like they're doing the thing they're supposed to do, but not necessarily enjoying the process. You know what I mean? But not only that, the relatability in terms of needing to sit with yourself. You guys, I hope you're picking up what Dr. Tonya is putting down because that's also something that I don't know that enough people, again, not just women, but sitting with yourself is something that not enough people give themselves the opportunity to do. I love that you talk so much about being a reflective person because I'm also a very reflective person. But I think that that's also how when we were created, were designed to operate. We weren't necessarily put here to be on go all the time. There were moments where if you were hunting, if we're taking it back to how we used to be before you could go to a grocery store, if you needed to hunt for food, you'd sit there and you would strategize or consider how am I going to get this. I was going to say lion. Maybe you're not attacking a lion. I don't know. But you would sit there and you would have to strategize your next move. You would have to consider the best approach for something. You would do it among your friends and family because more than likely you weren't out there hunting alone. So I think that there are all of these really, I want to say ancient ways of being that we've lost sight of that I think the world is now just starting to come back to recognizing as valuable, where the idea of being on go all the time is not as helpful as one would think it is, or the idea of having to hustle and grind it out and figure it out. And until you figure it out, just keep going. No, rest is required. Rest is required. And if you're not resting, not only are you stripping yourself of the opportunity to really be grounded with confidence in the next thing that you're doing, but you also rob yourself of the joy of the process of simply being like being present, you know? So I want to thank you for sharing those things. And I also have so many follow-up questions, but there was one more thing that I wanted to highlight about what you said in the fact that you said ESPN came looking for you and thinking about how in the process, I guess this is tied to the next question that I have. What were you putting out that allowed them to recognize this is the person for the job? I often talk about it in terms of I call it a joy quest with the journey to purpose. Once you have had that reflective time, once you are clear on what your vision is and your values and what brings you joy, then moving in accordance with that, which then influences so much else. What was on your joy quest when you sat down to reflect around being alone with yourself? What came up for you in terms of the what's next? And how did you start living that out to the point where a company like ESPN would call you?
Yeah, when I was sitting alone with myself and deciding what was next for me, I made a vow to myself that I would never take another job for title or money.
Ooh,
That
that's
it
good.
had to be, I had to be the work because at the end of the day, we get up every day in our jobs. If you're working from home or working as a mother at home or things like that, but if you're working in for an enterprise, I just determined that that was not going to be my path to joy. That
Mm.
titles come and go. They mean more or less. And that money, I just trusted that God would provide enough for me to live off of and that I would not be swayed to take a job that I really didn't like just because it paid more. And so those were also some things that, like I said, I really got clear on what was I going to say yes to and what was I going to say no to. But I knew that those could not be it. Those were not going to be the driving factors. It had to be the work. It had to be the work that drew me, the support for that work, and even company culture. As much as I could get a sense of it, that would be what would draw me to the work and what I would say yes to. In terms of why ESPN or any company was interested in me at that time, it's really interesting because I had not done a lot to market myself. I was just going about my career making decisions about the work. I was at Turner, so I'm sure ESPN was like, okay, we need to find someone who's doing this kind of work in learning and leadership and talent management. And it would be great if they worked for another media organization because they will just understand media organization. So I believe those things. The fact that I was definitely in pursuit of higher ed, continuing my studies, that I was working for another prominent media organization and I was doing the work in the capacity that they had a need for. And I think that I had some really good recommendations. You know how on LinkedIn people can do little recommendations for you, and they got a sense of that. So I think that was what was an initial attraction. And then I guess through just interviewing me, that was another thing in interviewing. I also decided I'm just like you and I'm just going to have a conversation.
Mm,
I'm going to share candidly, honestly. I'm not going to try to sell myself to anyone. I'm just going to let them get to know me. And if it's a match, if I feel good about them and they feel good about me, then you know what? Then we will then we can discuss and the offer and move forward from there. But I guess I was just done playing politics. I was done playing, how to get them to like me. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done with that. I want them to know me and then they
yes.
decide and I can decide and we go from there.
So good. In hearing you say that, a couple of things have come to mind and came to mind. One, that it sounds like you were positioned for favor. Like you positioned yourself for favor. In thinking about that, I think that there is a sense of recognizing that one, you did all that you could do. You set yourself up in the best way that you could, but the favor is what carried you into the next opportunity. But you made room for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that out because it's something that I've shared with a lot of people when I was staying at home for those months and reflecting and getting clarity about my next step. And I had flunked out of law school and was crying and saying, God, how did this happen? And I got to a place where I said, okay, God, beauty for ashes. Give me beauty for ashes.
Oh.
And that's exactly what happened. So whether that's favor on me and opening doors, he gave me beauty for ashes, where one dream or one so-called dream that I had, it was a dream, but it was might have been not in the path that I was meant to go. When that burned, when there were ashes there, you know, God gave me beauty, gave me a career beyond what I could even think or imagine. And I have enjoyed every minute of it. And that's why I say now I can look back with no regrets and I can look
Mm.
and be joyful about that experience because of where it led me to. And so I think that is whether that's favor, whether that is God honoring, giving me beauty for ashes. I certainly have been the beneficiary and I'm so thankful.
That is beautiful. It almost sounds like the failure was a setup. Like, I think about failure that way sometimes, where I don't even like to I know that failure gets a very negative rap sometimes, but I think that if you are failing, then you're doing it right, because if you are wise in how you fail, then it's always bringing you one step closer to who you're actually meant to be and what you're actually meant to be doing. It's when you don't sit down and reflect after a moment of failure that you actually then fail. Because if you're just going back to doing the same kind of things, then it doesn't set you up for moving forward. It really just keeps you feeling stuck. At least that's my thought around it.
Yeah, and so many people will say, "Well, then that really wasn't a failure." And it's true. Maybe it
It
wasn't,
was a lesson.
but
Yeah.
set up to something better and greater. And we all have those. We all have those. We may think of it in the moment as I failed, but I think in hindsight, we can look back and say, "No, that was the moment that opened another door for me." And so I think it's all perspective.
Yeah. Revamped the term fail and I turned it into an acronym that is faith always inspires learning. So every time I failed, I'm like, Lord, this is an opportunity for you to teach me something. What is it? And please give me the lessons quickly so that I don't keep making the same mistake. Mm, Considering everywhere that you've been in your career and everything that you've done, you sound so at peace with entering this next season of what's next. In entering retirement, you're one of the few people that I think is not just excited for retirement in terms of the idea of like, I'm free now, but and also having a grounded clarity around like what you're going to do when you get there. And I don't know if that's something that a lot of people consider when they're entering retirement. So I would love to ask you a bit about the process of being willing to let go, because sometimes when people are in high positions and they've done so much, they just want to hold on to that opportunity. But you're at a stage where you're shifting out of employee into full-time entrepreneurship. So how's it going? How are you passing the baton? What do you think creates for a successful passing of the baton?
Yeah. So I do think that, first of all, we don't own any of these roles that we have. We don't own them. It's
Mm,
like we're renting them for a little while. Then you pass the baton for somebody else to rent them. I do think passing the baton and doing that with generosity and with gratitude is true leadership. It is one way in which that I am sharing with my team, with the person who is succeeding me in this role, taking on the responsibilities that I have had, in which I honor them. And, and I also think letting go is you cannot embrace the new if you're still hanging on to the old.
yes.
And so letting go to me is about me embracing my future and also being generous enough to let go and hand over to someone else. It's really that simple to me, but it also gets back to an earlier question of not conflating who you are with what you do too tightly, and knowing that, we're loaned, if you will, that role. I'd like to think that I occupied it very well and gave it all that I had and contributed really greatly to our people and our company. And now, like a relay race, oh, I run that leg of my race, and now it's someone else's turn to run their leg of that race and take it on home or run it for a period of time, and then they will pass the baton. So it's, because I do know that I have a future and there are other things that I want to do, letting go becomes easier for me. And so I'd speak to anyone who is going through a transition and remembering that you have to let go in order to step into what's new and what's for you. And I had someone to tell me, said, Tanya, I believe your greatest work is in front of you. And for someone who's had an incredible career to have that spoken to me and over me, I receive that wholeheartedly. That my
Yes.
greatest work may be ahead of me, not what I've already done. And I think when we are going through a transition and letting go of a career that we've loved, We should remember that, that
Yeah.
was great, but the possibility is that there is something even greater ahead of us. And
Yes.
look, I want to speak to those who are contemplating retirement. The thing I love about retirement is it's on your terms. You get to choose what that next period of your life will look like. If you want to be someone who just sits by the lake and throw their fishing pole in and spend hours fishing, you get to do that. You decide. If you want to be someone who wants to, be an entrepreneur, start up a business, or continue on work that you have been doing because it fuels you and feeds you in a certain way, you get to do that as well. And so I think retirement is whatever we can make it to be. Some people have called it rewirement,
That's good.
wiring and changing gears and pursuing something else that is just as meaningful, if not more so, to you than what you have left behind. So again, it's mindset, and having a
Yes.
positive mindset and understanding that your greatness is bigger than a job.
Some of the biggest takeaways I think from hearing your conversation today is to one, make that time for rest, and reflection, but also recognizing that we're only here for a little, like, and we should really make the most of the opportunity that we get to be here. And I so wholeheartedly agree that all of this is a gift. And when you begin to see it as a gift, you treat it with wonder and awe and gratitude. So thank you. So before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share with the Journey listeners? Any exciting projects that you have coming up, which I mean, retirement and the AHA principle, I'm sure is one of them, but is there anything else that you'd like to share?
That I am gearing up for the AHA principle. Again, it goes by the more common name of your AHA life, which is a labor of love and purpose and mission that I feel that I'm super excited about. And I'll be sharing more and more about that. But really it is a movement started many years ago and is coming into fruition around that, and involved in that will be certainly coaching and speaking and writing. I'm writing a book. So I don't know the name of it yet, but I'm writing it under Your Aha Life. And so we'll look to publish that in the sometime in the new year, hopefully.
Wow.
Launch some online courses. My first course that is actually under development right now is called Living Joyfully. So I think your listeners would probably love to maybe consider taking that course. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited about it. So yeah, and just living life, spending more time with my family, my kids, my grandkids, and traveling. Those are the things that I'm looking forward to. If you want to know more about Your Aha Life, please just go to yourahalife.com and you'll see a little bit about what it's about.
Exciting. I feel like I want to talk to you all day, Miss Dr. Tanya. I know you got to go.
I
You got to go, but this has been so enriching and so enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your wealth of knowledge and your journey with us. And I pray that the Journey listeners who are tuning in that they're able to receive some of these gems and that they're able to implement them into their own lives. You guys, make sure you go check out Dr. Tanya and Your Aha Life at yourahalife.com. But again, Dr. Tanya, thank you so much for just sharing your space with us.
Thank you,
No
Erica.
problem.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for waiting to get our schedules all together. It's been my pleasure meeting you, talking with you. I think we are very much aligned. I think what connected us was we both have this commitment, this love, and this passion around bringing more joy into the world. So I just also wish you the best with your work that you're doing. I think we need it out there, and I support you 1,000%.
Thank you so much. And praise God. Oh man, this has been wonderful. What a conversation. Dr. Tonya's journey reminds us that joy isn't reserved for retirement, nor is it something that you happen to stumble into once everything is figured out. Joy is cultivated intentionally through faith, boundaries, and the courage to let go when seasons shift. If this message encouraged you, challenged you, or helped bring language to something that you'd been carrying for a while but didn't quite know how to articulate or express, here are 2 key ways that you can help this message reach other women and leaders who may need it in this season of their life. The first is to subscribe to the JOYrney To Purpose podcast so you don't miss out on other conversations like this one. The second is to share this episode with a friend or colleague, an HR leader, or another executive that you may know who is navigating transition or succession. And if this message landed with you personally and you're considering what the next step in your journey should be, don't forget to take the Work-Life Joy quiz, because your joy isn't a bonus benefit. It's a leadership strategy, and it's a legacy decision. All right? Until the next time, remember to keep living, loving, and leading from a place of rest and joy. We're on the journey together, one feel-good thing at a time. Bye. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the JOYrney To Purpose podcast. If you're ready to take what you learned today and put it into action, then friend, you might just be ready to take a Joy Quest, my step-by-step experience that is designed to help you reclaim your time, rest, and your peace without the guilt. Head over to ericalasan.com/joy-quest, or you can visit the link in the show notes to start your journey today. And remember, we're on the journey together, one feel-good thing at a time. Bye.